a titan of the frontier, 7 feet of lawless muscle, feared by the British Crown, hunted by the Boers. Yet, in the spring of 1799, the most dangerous man in southern Africa chose to save a saint. To understand the rebel, you must look to the blood. Coenraad de Buys was a living paradox. Born of French religious refugees fleeing persecution, and the freed Eastern slaves who built the colony's spine. He belonged to everyone and therefore to no one. At 7 years old, his world fractured. He watched his father die in agony, poisoned by the very woman who gave Coenraad life.
Just like Dirk Minnie, she did it again.
Fleeing a murderous home, the boy vanished into the ancient stone. The colony lost a child. The wilderness forged a ghost. By the 1790s, the boy who fled into the rocks had become a myth. Coenraad de Buys was a man who outgrew the colony, literally and legally. An outlaw with a price on his head, he crossed the Great Fish River, leaving the white man's law behind, to forge an empire of his own. In the shadow of the Amatola Mountains, Coenraad found more than a refuge. He found a kingdom. By winning the heart of Yente, the Queen Mother, the outlaw became the chief advisor and stepfather to the most powerful young monarch on the frontier, Chief Ngqika. In 1797, the British Empire came knocking on the wilderness door. Seeking to stabilize the frontier, they sent geographer John Barrow to negotiate with the Xhosa. But the British quickly realized that the keys to the kingdom were held not by a chief, but by a Cape Colony deserter.
Chief Ngqika. Her Majesty's Crown requires absolute order upon these borders. Therefore, it is our explicit proposal that a permanent territorial division be established immediately. By order of the Governor, all white
Barrow
settlers
noted
shall remain
with
strictly
awe
to the
that
west
the
of
brilliant
Great
young
Fish
king
River,
would not
and all
utter a
members of the
word
nation
without
shall
first
reside
glancing at his giant
This
white
line,
advisor.
this river, must
For a
become
brief
a
moment in the
boundary
summer of
between us.
1797, a fugitive from justice was the true axis upon which the future of southern Africa turned. In 1799, a new kind of European arrived on the frontier, the missionary. Dr. Johannes van der Kemp sought to bring the gospel to the Xhosa, but to survive, he needed the protection of the ultimate sinner. Ngqika's great place was no longer just a royal court. It was a sanctuary for the desperate. Deserters, refugees, and Khoisan rebels gathered in a landscape defined by shifting alliances rather than total war. Here de Buys was the bridge between vastly different worlds. When the Third Frontier War finally ignited, the middle ground vanished, crushed between the expanding Cape Colony and his own divided people. Ngqika could no longer harbor a ghost. The alliance shattered. Coenraad de Buys was, once again, a man without a country. For decades, the colony tried to tame him with pardons and land. But in 1812, Coenraad committed the one sin the frontier could never forgive. He broke the code of white solidarity by testifying against a prominent settler for the brutal torture of a slave. De Buys signed his final exile. Crossing the Gariep River, he left the British Empire behind forever. He was no longer just a fugitive. He was a sovereign. In the lawless interior, De Buys gathered an army of the dispossessed, marrying Elizabeth of the Thembu and forging a nomadic pirate state that answered to no king but him. He pushed deeper north than any white man before him, embedding his empire in the Zoutpansberg. Trading ivory for gunpowder with the Portuguese, De Buys became a gatekeeper of the interior, a ghost who controlled the veins of wealth long before the maps were ever drawn. The wilderness had given him everything, and now it took his anchor. When fever claimed Elizabeth, the fire in Coenraad de Buys finally went out. Telling his sons to wait for him at the Limpopo, the old giant walked into the eastern mists alone. No body was ever found. No grave was ever dug. The frontier had simply swallowed its most famous ghost. Coenraad de Buys vanished into the mists of legend, but the bloodline he left behind refused to fade. His sons, Michael, Gabriel, and Doris, became the undisputed lords of the northern frontier. Armed with their father's survival instincts and unmatched marksmanship, they made themselves indispensable to anyone who dared rule the interior. In a landscape defined by colonial land grabs and racial segregation, the Buys clan achieved the impossible. In 1888, after decades of vital military and scouting service, Michael de Buys secured 11,000 hectares of land in perpetuity from President Paul Kruger. 20 years later, even the British Empire was forced to honor the promise. Today, empires have fallen, and apartheid has risen and vanished into the dustbin of history. Yet the Buys Volk remain. 2 centuries later, this unique community still holds their original land deeds, fiercely preserving an identity forged in the wilderness. Coenraad de Buys was hunted, hated, and exiled, but in the end, the ghost won. He didn't just survive the frontier, he outlasted it,